CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
We are now going to turn to our next guest. Daniel Judd is joining me now on the line. Daniel has just posted last week, and this may actually start to look like we're having a bit of a Feds beat up here on CountryWide Connect. We most certainly aren't. However, there's a few things that are rustling the leadership's feathers at the moment, and the other one is around a fair debate on GE, but also too about them feeling like they need to make a stance. Daniel is part of Future Farmers, and I believe, Daniel, you had a great event over the weekend. Let's just start by talking about Future Farmers, for those who aren't aware what the organisation is, and how the weekend was.
Yeah, cheers, Sarah. We had one of our twice yearly hui's hosted this weekend at Lincoln. This one focused around the research and innovation space within the New Zealand ag sector. Sorry, just lost you there. Yeah, so focused around the research and innovation space in the ag sector. Had a lot of conversations around how the change to the BSI is going to affect some of those funding elements and what that actually means for our innovation space, and tried to work collectively to what we thought would be a better way of going about it.
The BSI?
Yeah, so that is where they're amalgamating some of the CRIs together into a amalgamated funding pool.
Right. The Bioeconomy Science Institute is what you're referring to there.
I am.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Daniel, was the discussion about gene tech and Future Farmers making their own stance coming forward at your get-together, and whether that was appropriate for your members?
So that wasn't a specific focus of this weekend, but that is just a discussion that we had hosted previously. We had attempted to host that at Field Days in the advocacy tent where we sat with Feds, and at the time we were told that it was too controversial and they didn't want to be involved in it, which as a member I was pretty disappointed by. Pretty similar to Feds, we have a very broad membership, so we sort of struggle to put a stance forward as a whole of where we sit. Like I know where I am, and I think this was sort of my point that I put to Feds was there's not really a middle ground. If you're going to take a no stance, that's fair enough. That's reflective of what your base is, or you're sort of a for or against. And having talked to Wayne yesterday, I think the article that I was criticising didn't fully explain where their stance sits, and I think that's a lot of my gripe with Feds at the minute is their public communications are kind of talking to the lowest common denominator. It seems to be really fear-based, which ultimately is reflective of the industry at the minute, which I think is pretty worrying in itself. I mean, those elements are understandable, right? Like we've had a pretty tough couple of decades and a pretty tough mirror put up to us, but that doesn't mean that we shy away from these issues. I think the responsibility both for Feds and for farmers is to be front-footing some of this stuff and trying to find better, more dynamic ways through the change that is coming at us thick and fast.
Yeah, so your words, quoting your post, we're seeing this lack of leadership across every issue. Feds haven't lost their teeth, they've lost their guts. They're scared of getting offside with a portion of their base, and so they produce fearful status quo protective policy and content. It's wonderful that you got to speak to Wayne. We asked him for comment on Friday morning. He said he was too busy. He appeared on The Country. We asked Wayne to appear today on Friday evening. He said he was busy. So it's great to see that he can reach out to you, Daniel. Do you think that Wayne will actually come forth and make a stance, or are you just being like Walt Cavendish and getting under his feathers as well?
Yeah, I think I'm just getting under his feathers as well. He seems to be pretty cautious, which, yeah, in some respects I think is understandable. In other respects, like I said, I think there is a lack of leadership there, and they're sort of being led by their lowest common denominator of the farming industry base.
Okay, so they're obviously representative of their voluntary membership base, those who choose to pay a membership for Federated Farmers, and you believe that there's a representation there that want to maintain status quo, but status quo isn't a new bill being passed that will have change within New Zealand.
No, it's not. I mean, I think the industry as a whole, we are still really stuck in the 80s. We want it to be 2002 again, which is understandable. That boom stage for dairy was pretty good times for the industry, but it's never going to go back to that. We have to look forward and be proactive in the way that we're dealing with these issues. Water quality is not going away. How we integrate Māori within not just our consents and co-governance and all of that, that's not going away. By kicking all of this stuff down the road, we're just one change of government away from having these things imposed on us. And if we don't have dynamic ideas that we've already put together before we come to that point, we're going to end up in another Three Waters situation.
So with regards to the gene tech bill, as a dairy farmer yourself, Daniel, do you understand the reason for the bill as a farmer?
The reason for the bill is National wants a silver bullet answer and to not have to change anything.
With regards to?
Insert issue here. If you're looking for silver bullet answers, it could potentially solve our water issues. It could potentially solve our environmental issues. It could potentially solve our emissions issues. But I'm yet to see any product that we're currently missing out on that would solve any of those things. It offers potential, and that's about it. The reality is that our current legislation allows for such a product to come in anyway. What we're risking in that is we are an island that we can actually limit this stuff, and the way that the rest of the world goes, I don't think it acknowledges properly where that could become an advantage as being one of the solely left industries that has true GE elimination products.
I'm really interested in your thoughts, future farmers, the next generation of leaders, looking forward at how we are structured in our sector and how we have true representation of views in the sector. A democratic grassroots farming organisation is Wayne's words. Democratic in regards to the world that we live in now, and we talked earlier to Walt Cavendish about the rise of social media putting pressure on the democratic process. But when our industry truly represents our views and that we've been consulted by government, do you believe that potentially may change in the future? And if so, how?
I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can change the democratic process, right? I mean, look at what we've done with MMP and going from first past the post. That changes the makeup of what that government is. Whether Feds necessarily needs to change the way that they define themselves as democratic, I don't necessarily think is the question. At the end of the day, they are reflective of their base, and they either lead their base and provide information and show them the way that we're going, with the information that they have that Joe Blow farmer doesn't necessarily have, or they're led by the lowest common denominator, and that's kind of their options. It is a hard position to be in, and I acknowledge that, but I think we as farmers have a lot of responsibility in that on deciding whether we want to front the foot this stuff or whether we just want to argue and say that it goes away.
The reason I asked that is because, there was a comment there in your post where you asked for a debate with Federated Farmers, and they said that the issue is too controversial. There's been multiple
I didn't ask for a debate with Federated Farmers. The point of that discussion was that we hosted a discussion to inform their members. It was never to, while that does inform feds themselves, it's not a direct debate. And I employ people to go and watch the link and the conversation that we did have. You can find it at the Lincoln University State of the Land page on YouTube. It's entitled Beyond the Buzzwords, Genetic Engineering and Our Future. It's an informative discussion. We've got both sides of the discussion there, and we strip back a lot of the rhetoric and the politicization and to inform people on what the benefits and the risks are on this issue, because that is a complicated one.
It most certainly is. And Daniel Judd, who is a Kellogg scholar, dairy farmer and part of Future Farmers, joining us to be able to highlight your thoughts on the issue and around what the right approach is. And if you are interested, thank you, Daniel, for giving those links as well to be able to watch that. So it's an ever-evolving octopus with many legs, this topic as well, that will be discussed throughout the year. Daniel, thank you for your time.
Cheers.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.